Hey everyone, welcome back. Today, we're diving into something you specifically requested AI adoption in companies. You want to know why it's such a headache for so many and how to actually make it work.
Yeah, it's a great topic, incredibly relevant right now. I mean, every company seems to be jumping on the AI bandwagon, but there's a lot more to it than just, flipping a switch and expecting magic.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And to help us unpack all of this, we've got this fantastic guide from Cognition.Info. It's aimed at CXOs who are wrestling with this challenge of getting their people on board with AI. And right off the bat, the guide highlights this fascinating paradox.
Yeah. The guide points out that you've got executives, right, who are super enthusiastic about AI. In fact, the guide says 85% of them believe that AI is going to completely revolutionize their businesses. But then you talk to employees, and over 60% of them are actually worried about AI's impact.
It's a huge gap. It's like the captains are all gung-ho to set sail, but over half the crew is worrying about sea monsters. Not exactly a recipe for a smooth voyage.
That's a great way to put it. And the guide emphasizes that the problem isn't the technology itself, it's us, We humans tend to resist AI, and I think for completely understandable reasons.
Okay, let's break down this resistance a bit. What are some of the specific fears that people have when it comes to AI?
Well, the guide lists several, and they're all very relatable. Job security is a big one, right? People are worried that robots are going to take their jobs.
Which, let's be honest, is a valid concern in some cases.
Absolutely. Then there's the fear of feeling incompetent. People who've spent years mastering a particular way of doing things suddenly have this new system coming in that might make their skills obsolete. It can be a real blow to the ego.
It's like, you finally figure out how to use that complicated spreadsheet program, and then they switch everyone over to something completely different. You're back to feeling like a newbie.
Exactly. And then there are concerns about loss of control. People are used to having a certain level of autonomy in their work, and AI can feel like it's taking that away.
It's like having a co-pilot who's constantly second-guessing your every move, even if they have, good intentions. It can be incredibly frustrating.
Yeah. There's also a lack of trust in what people call the black box of AI, right? People don't understand how these systems make decisions, and that can be unsettling. It's hard to trust something you don't understand.
Especially when those decisions could have a direct impact on your job or your career. And finally, there's this feeling that AI is just going to clash with the existing company culture.
You're absolutely right. If a company has always valued human intuition and creativity, bringing in a system that seems to prioritize, cold, hard data can create a lot of friction.
So we've got all these very real fears and anxieties swirling around AI. What's the psychology behind all of this? Why are we wired to resist change, even if it's potentially beneficial?
Well, the guide digs into some really interesting psychological principles here. One key factor is what's called loss aversion. As humans, we're naturally programmed to hate losing things more than we like gaining new things.
So even if AI could bring all sorts of amazing new possibilities, our brains tend to focus on what we might lose in the process.
Exactly, and it makes sense from an evolutionary standpoint. I mean, for our ancestors, losing something essential like food or shelter could have meant the difference between life and death. So we developed this strong aversion to loss as a way to protect ourselves.
It's like our brains are still running on Stone Age software, even though we're living in the digital age.
That's a good analogy. And it helps to explain why even the most, rational, level-headed people can get a little freaked out when they feel like AI is threatening something they value.
So loss aversion is one piece of the puzzle. What else is going on in our brains when we encounter AI?
Well, another important factor is status anxiety. For many people, their expertise and skills are a big part of their identity and their value within a company. And when AI comes along and it has the potential to automate some of those skills, it can trigger this feeling of, am I still relevant? Is my job still secure?
It's like you spent years building up your reputation as the company's spreadsheet guru, and suddenly everyone's talking about how AI can do it 10 times faster and with fewer errors.
Exactly. And even if you're logically aware that AI is a tool that can, enhance your skills, there's still this primal part of your brain that's worried about being replaced or becoming obsolete.
So we've got loss aversion, we've got status anxiety. What else is making us resistant to AI?
Well, the guide also talks about the impact of uncertainty. When we encounter something new and unfamiliar, our brains tend to interpret it as a potential threat.
It's like, walking into a dark room. Your senses are on high alert and you're ready to jump at the slightest noise.
Exactly. And until we gain a better understanding of what AI is, how it works, and how it will impact our lives, our brains are going to keep flashing those warning signs.
So it's not that people are being irrational or stubborn. Their brains are just doing what they're designed to do. Protect them from perceived threats.
Right. And that's why it's so important to approach AI adoption with empathy and understanding. We need to acknowledge these very real fears and address them head on rather than just dismissing them as, irrational or unfounded.
It sounds like this resistance to AI is a lot more complex than just people being afraid of robots taking their jobs.
Absolutely. It's a deeply human response to change, and it's something that leaders need to be aware of and sensitive to if they want to successfully integrate AI into their organizations.
So we've established that people resist AI for some pretty understandable reasons. But what's the real-world cost of this resistance? Is it just a minor inconvenience, or does it have a significant impact on businesses?
Well, the guide is very clear on this point. The cost of resistance is enormous, and it goes way beyond just a few delays or frustrated employees.
Okay, I'm ready for some hard-hitting stats. Give me the numbers.
All right, buckle up. The guide cites research showing that projects facing strong resistance can take 1.5 to 2 times longer to complete.
That's huge. Imagine you're a company trying to launch, like, a new AI-powered product or service. A delay of that magnitude could easily mean missing out on a critical market opportunity.
Exactly. And it's not just about time either. The guide also points out that most AI projects only reach a fraction of their potential because people aren't fully utilizing the technology.
It's like spending a fortune on a state-of-the-art kitchen, but then only using the microwave.
That's a perfect analogy. Companies are pouring money into these powerful AI systems, but they're sitting there gathering dust because employees are either afraid to use them or actively trying to avoid them.
So not only are companies wasting their investments, but they're also missing out on all the potential benefits that AI could bring. It's a double whammy.
And it gets even worse. The guide talks about how this resistance often leads to what they call shadow processes.
Shadow processes, what are those?
Essentially, it's when employees create workarounds to avoid using the AI system. They might continue doing things the old manual way, or they might find ways to, trick the system into producing the results they want.
So instead of embracing the new technology, they're actively trying to undermine it.
Exactly. And these shadow processes create all sorts of problems. They introduce errors, they create inefficiencies, and they make it incredibly difficult to track progress and measure the true impact of the AI system.
It's like trying to drive a car with one foot on the gas and the other on the brake.
Yeah.
You're not going to get very far, and you're probably going to damage the engine in the process.
That's a great way to visualize it. And the guide makes this critical point. These failed implementations create a toxic environment within the company.
Toxic in what way?
It breeds cynicism and distrust, right? Employees start to feel like their concerns aren't being heard, and they become resistant to any future technological changes.
So it's not just about the current AI project. It can poison the well for any future innovation. That's a pretty steep price to pay.
Absolutely. And while your company is struggling with all of this, internal AI drama, your competitors who have figured out how to win over their employees are zooming ahead.
They're reaping all the benefits of AI, increased efficiency, better decision-making, happier customers, while you're stuck dealing with resistance and workarounds. It's a recipe for getting left behind in the dust.
Precisely. And that's the opportunity cost that the guide highlights. If you don't address this human element, you're not just missing out on the potential of AI, you're actively putting your company at a competitive disadvantage.
Okay, so we've painted a pretty bleak picture of what happens when companies ignore the human side of AI adoption. What's the alternative? If this install the tech and they'll comply approach isn't working, what should companies be doing differently?
Well, the guide advocates for a complete shift in mindset. It's not about force-feeding AI to employees. It's about creating a culture of engagement and collaboration.
Engagement.
Yeah.
Help me understand what that looks like in practice.
Well, think of it as a cycle, not a one-time event. It starts with truly listening to people's fears and concerns, and not just giving them a pat on the head and saying, don't worry, it'll be fine. You actually have to take their concerns seriously and address them in a meaningful way.
So it's about acknowledging that those fears are legitimate and showing empathy.
Exactly. Then you need to educate them. And not just on the technical aspects of how to use the AI, but on the why behind it. Why is this AI good for the company? Why is it good for their individual careers? How will it make their jobs better?
So it's about connecting the dots between the technology and the people who will be using it.
Right. And this education piece isn't a one-time thing either. It needs to be an ongoing process with opportunities for people to ask questions, get clarification, and share their feedback.
It sounds like this engagement approach is all about creating a sense of ownership rather than just imposing AI on people from above.
Exactly. And that's why the guide stresses the importance of involving employees in the AI design process itself. If people feel like they have a voice in how the technology is being implemented, they're much more likely to embrace it.
So instead of just being told what to do, they're actually part of the solution.
Right. And as you're rolling out the AI, you need to be prepared to adapt based on their feedback.
Hmm.
Don't be afraid to, tweak the system, adjust workflows, or even scrap certain features if they're not working for the people who are actually using them.
So it's an iterative process with constant feedback and adjustments along the way.
Exactly. And one of the most important elements of engagement is celebrating the wins. When people see that the AI is actually making a positive impact, whether it's saving time, improving efficiency, or helping them do their jobs better, they're much more likely to become advocates for the technology.
It's like, hey, look what we achieved together. AI isn't so bad after all.
Right. Make it a journey that everyone is on together rather than something that's being done to them.
So we've talked about listening, educating, involving, adapting, and celebrating. It sounds like quite a shift from the traditional approach to technology implementation.
It is, and it requires a different set of leadership skills. It's not enough to just be tech savvy. You also need to be people savvy.
That makes sense. You can have the most sophisticated AI system in the world, but if you don't have buy-in from your employees, it's not going to be very effective.
Absolutely. And that's why the guide dedicates a whole section to the role of leadership in driving successful AI adoption.
Okay, let's dive into that leadership role a bit further. What are some of the specific things that leaders need to do to create this culture of engagement and collaboration?
The guide is very clear on this point. Leaders can't just delegate this responsibility and, wash their hands of it. They need to be actively involved in every step of the process, from setting the vision to communicating the benefits to addressing concerns head on.
So it's not just about giving a rousing speech about the wonders of AI and then expecting everyone to fall in line.
Right. They need to be actively involved in shaping the narrative, fostering a sense of trust, and demonstrating that they're committed to making this work for everyone, not just the bottom line.
So what does that look like in practice? Give me some concrete examples.
Well, one of the most important things leaders can do is tell a compelling story. They need to explain why this AI is not just good for the company as a whole, but also good for individual employees.
It's not enough to just say AI is going to boost our profits. You need to show people how it's going to make their jobs better, give them new opportunities, or enhance their career prospects.
Exactly. And it's not just about words, it's also about actions. Leaders need to visibly demonstrate their commitment to AI adoption by using the technology themselves, participating in training, and seeking out opportunities to learn more about how AI can be used to improve their own work.
So it's about walking the walk, not just talking the talk.
Right. And perhaps most importantly, leaders need to make it safe for people to speak up, even if they're skeptical or have concerns.
Because if people are afraid to raise their hand and say, hey, I don't understand this, or I think this is a bad idea, then you're never going to get that honest feedback that you need to make the implementation successful.
Exactly. You need to create an environment where people feel comfortable asking questions, challenging assumptions, and even making mistakes, without fear of repercussions.
So it's about fostering a culture of psychological safety, where people feel like their voices are valued and their concerns will be taken seriously.
Absolutely. And the psychological safety is essential for building trust and encouraging people to embrace change rather than resist it.
Okay, I'm getting the big picture here. We need to move away from this top-down command and control approach to AI adoption and towards a more collaborative, human-centered model. But let's get down to brass tacks. What are some practical strategies that companies are using to get people on board with AI? What's actually working in the real world?
That's where the guide gets really interesting. It outlines 4 core strategies for overcoming resistance and driving adoption, and it backs them up with real-world examples of companies that are doing this successfully.
Okay, less theory, more tactics. What are these 4 game-changing strategies?
Well, the guide lays out 4 powerful strategies for moving people along that spectrum, from fear and resistance to acceptance and even advocacy for AI. And they're not just theoretical concepts. The guide provides real-world examples of companies using these strategies to great effect.
Okay, less theory, more tactics. What are these four game-changing strategies?
First up is a reframing. It's all about shifting the narrative, moving away from that AI is going to replace you to AI is going to empower you. Instead of focusing on what people might lose, you highlight the opportunities AI creates.
So it's not about sugarcoating or pretending there are no downsides, but rather about helping people see the bigger picture and how AI can actually improve their work lives.
Exactly. The guide gives a great example of a financial services company that was rolling out a new AI system for document processing. Initially, there was a lot of pushback from employees who, feared their jobs were at risk.
I can see why people would be worried. Document processing sounds like something AI could easily automate.
It is, but the company cleverly reframed the initiative as customer advocate empowerment. They emphasized how AI would handle those, tedious, repetitive tasks, freeing up employees to focus on building relationships with clients and providing more personalized service.
So instead of being replaced, these employees were being elevated to a more strategic and fulfilling role.
Precisely. And it worked. The company saw a 76% increase in voluntary adoption of the AI system. People started seeing it not as a threat, but as a tool to help them become even better at their jobs.
That's a fantastic example of how reframing can turn fear into opportunity. What's the next strategy?
Next up is education. The guide emphasizes that a lot of resistance stems from simple misunderstanding. People fear what they don't know, so you need to educate them, demystify AI, and address those knowledge gaps.
It's like if you're afraid of the dark, turning on the light usually makes it less scary.
Exactly. And the guide highlights a healthcare provider that took this approach to heart. They launched what they called a medical AI academy to educate doctors and nurses about their new AI-powered diagnostic tool.
So instead of just dropping the new tech on them and saying, figure it out, they provided comprehensive training and support.
Exactly. They offered everything from basic AI awareness sessions to in-depth technical workshops tailored to different roles and levels of expertise.
So everyone had the opportunity to learn not just how to use the AI, but also, how it worked, its limitations, and its potential benefits.
Right. And the results were impressive. Their initial resistance from clinical staff dropped by 62% because they could see clearly how this AI was going to, support their decision-making, not replace them. They understood it was a tool to enhance their own expertise, not a threat to it.
That's a great example of how knowledge can be a powerful antidote to fear. What's the third strategy in the guide's arsenal?
This one is all about empowering employees. Participation.
Yeah.
We humans have this inherent need to feel in control, right? If we're part of shaping the change, we're much more likely to embrace it.
It's like I'm much more likely to eat my vegetables if I help grow them in the garden.
Exactly. And when it comes to AI, participation can take many forms. The guide suggests involving employees in things like advisory groups, user experience testing, and feedback sessions throughout the entire design and implementation process.
So instead of being passive recipients of AI, they become active contributors. They get to influence how AI is integrated into their workflows, and make sure it actually meets their needs.
Right. And the guide gives this fascinating example of a manufacturing company that put this principle into practice. They were implementing an AI-powered quality control system. And instead of just imposing it on their production line workers, they created what they called digital innovation teams.
So they brought the people who actually do the work into the design process.
Exactly. And it was brilliant. These frontline workers had insights that the engineers and managers, could never have anticipated. They knew the intricacies of the production process, the potential bottlenecks, and the specific challenges they faced, on a daily basis.
So they were able to provide invaluable feedback and help shape the AI system to be truly effective.
Exactly. And the results speak for themselves. They received 23 employee-initiated improvements to the AI design, and they achieved a whopping 94% adoption rate within just 3 months of launch.
That's amazing. It's proof that involving employees not only makes them feel more invested, but also leads to a better product. Okay, we've got reframing, education, and participation. What's the final strategy for winning over those AI skeptics?
This one's all about building trust. Transparency. Don't keep people in the dark about how the AI works, what data it uses, and how decisions are made. Openness and honesty are key to building confidence and reducing anxiety.
It's like if I'm going to be riding in a self-driving car, I want to know how it navigates, how it avoids obstacles, and what happens if something goes wrong. I don't want to just blindly trust that it's going to work perfectly.
That's a great analogy. And the guide provides this compelling example of a retail company that was rolling out an AI-powered staff scheduling system. Understandably, employees were worried about fairness, especially when it came to like those coveted weekend shifts.
Yeah, that's a sensitive issue. People want to know that the system is fair and impartial and that their preferences are being considered.
Exactly. So the company decided to be radically transparent. They showed employees exactly how the AI system prioritized shifts, taking into account things like availability, skill sets, experience, and even past performance.
So they basically opened up the black box and let everyone see how the algorithm worked.
Right. And they even created this feedback mechanism where employees could flag any perceived unfairness or suggest improvements to the system.
They have some control over the process.
Absolutely. And the results were remarkable. They saw an 87% reduction in scheduling conflicts, and employee satisfaction with the new system, soared.
That's incredible. It seems like transparency is this crucial ingredient for successful AI adoption.
Hmm.
Okay, we've got our 4 core strategies: reframing, education, participation, and transparency. But how do these strategies actually play out in different roles within a company? Is it a one-size-fits-all approach, or does it need to be tailored to specific departments and functions?
That's where the guide gets really granular, offering specific advice for different roles. For example, HR plays this critical role in assessing the company's overall change readiness. They need to gauge how receptive employees are to change in general, identify potential roadblocks, and develop strategies to address them.
So it's about understanding the company's cultural DNA and how adaptable it is to new ways of working.
Exactly. And HR also needs to develop, clear frameworks for how people's roles will evolve alongside AI. They need to provide training, resources, and clear career paths so that employees see AI as an opportunity for growth and development, not a threat to their livelihoods.
So instead of just saying, don't worry, your job is safe, they're actually showing employees how their skills can be leveraged in this new AI-powered world.
Right. It's about helping them see how their careers can evolve and thrive in this new landscape. And then you have the tech folks who are obviously responsible for choosing and implementing the actual AI solutions.
Right, but it sounds like their role goes beyond just the technical aspects.
Absolutely. The guide emphasizes that they need to prioritize human-centered design. The tech has to be user-friendly, intuitive, and seamlessly integrated into existing workflows. It's not enough for the AI to be powerful, it also needs to be accessible and easy to use.
Because if the AI is clunky or difficult to use, people are going to resist it, no matter how much training or support you provide. It's like trying to force everyone to use a typewriter in the age of laptops.
Exactly. And then you've got the department heads, the team leaders who are on the front lines, responsible for actually implementing this stuff on the ground. They need to tailor the approach to their specific teams and tasks, taking into account the unique challenges and opportunities they face.
So it's a company-wide effort, from the C-suite to the front lines. Everyone has a role to play in making AI adoption successful.
That's the key takeaway. It's not just an IT project, it's a cultural transformation. And it requires this holistic approach that addresses both the technical and the human sides of the equation.
Okay, we've talked about strategies, we've talked about roles, but how do you know if all of this is actually working? How do you measure progress in something as, fuzzy as AI acceptance?
That's a great question, and it's one that the guide addresses head on. It's not enough to just track adoption rates or usage statistics. You need to look beyond those surface level metrics and delve into the qualitative aspects of how people are experiencing the AI and how their attitudes are evolving.
So it's not just about whether people are using the AI, but also about how they feel about using it. Are they happy? Are they engaged? Are they coming up with new ideas for how it can be used?
Exactly. And the guide suggests using a combination of leading and lagging indicators to track progress.
Can you explain the difference between those?
Well, leading indicators are like early signals that you're moving in the right direction.
Mm-hmm.
There are things like employee sentiment, participation in training programs, and the number of questions and suggestions people are raising.
So it's about gauging people's mindset and their willingness to engage with the AI.
Right. Lagging indicators, on the other hand, are more about, concrete outcomes. Are people actually using the AI? Are they using it effectively? Are you seeing those improvements in performance, efficiency, and customer satisfaction that you were hoping for?
So it's about measuring the tangible impact of the AI on the business.
Exactly. And it's important to track both leading and lagging indicators because they give you a more holistic view of how the adoption process is unfolding.
It's like you can't just look at the speedometer to see if your car is working properly. You also need to check the engine temperature, the oil pressure, and all those other indicators that tell you how things are running under the hood.
That's a great analogy. And just like with a car, you need to make adjustments along the way based on the feedback you're getting.
Okay, we've talked about measuring progress, but what about those companies that are really going above and beyond? Are there any cutting-edge strategies that are emerging to take AI adoption to the next level?
Absolutely. The guide dives into some really fascinating advanced techniques that companies are using to accelerate adoption and maximize the impact of AI.
Okay, I'm ready for the deep dive into the deep dive. Tell me about these advanced strategies.
One of the most exciting areas is the application of neuroscience to AI adoption. Researchers are using insights from brain science to understand how people react to change and how to design interventions that minimize resistance and maximize engagement.
So it's like hacking the human operating system to make AI upgrades run smoother.
Exactly.
Huh.
For example, they're studying how the brain perceives threats and rewards, and they're using that knowledge to craft communication strategies that minimize fear and highlight the positive aspects of AI.
So instead of just telling people, don't worry, AI is good for you, they're actually tailoring the message to resonate with the way our brains are wired.
Right. And they're also experimenting with things like gamification and personalized learning experiences to make the adoption process more engaging and enjoyable.
It's like turning AI training into a video game. That's brilliant. What other advanced techniques are they exploring?
Yeah, and it's not just, about offering a one-size-fits-all approach to AI training. They're actually creating a custom experience for each employee, taking into account their individual learning styles, their fears, and their motivations.
So it's like having a personal trainer for AI adoption.
Precisely. It's like having a personal trainer for AI adoption. And the guide even highlights some companies that are using AI itself to personalize this process. They're using things like sentiment analysis, right, to gauge how employees are feeling about the technology.
So they can identify those who are struggling or resistant and offer them, extra support or like a different approach.
Exactly. They're also using adaptive learning platforms that tailor the training content and pace to each individual's needs.
So someone who's, already tech savvy might breeze through the basics, while someone who's a little more hesitant can take their time and get all the support they need.
Right. And some companies are even using AI-powered simulations to give employees a virtual test drive of their future roles. They
Yeah.
can experience firsthand how AI will change their workflows and see those potential benefits in a safe, controlled environment.
That's amazing. It's like a flight simulator for the future of work. Okay, we've covered a lot of ground here. From the psychological barriers to AI adoption to some really cutting-edge strategies for overcoming those barriers. If you had to sum up everything we've learned in this deep dive, what would it be?
I think the biggest takeaway is that AI adoption is not just about technology, it's about people.
It's about understanding how people react to change, addressing their fears, and empowering them to be part of the solution.
Absolutely. The companies that get this right, the ones that put people at the center of their AI strategy, are the ones that will truly thrive in this new era of intelligent automation.
They'll see faster adoption rates, a better return on their AI investments, and ultimately, they'll create a more engaged, more productive, and more future-ready workforce.
And just as importantly, they'll create a workplace where people feel valued, respected, and excited about the future rather than threatened by it.
So for anyone listening who's wrestling with AI adoption in their own organization, what's the one piece of advice you would give them?
I'd say don't underestimate the human factor. Technology is important, but it's the people who will ultimately determine whether your AI initiatives succeed or fail.
Invest in change management, build a culture of trust and transparency, and empower your employees to be champions of AI, not victims of it.
Well said.
And on that note, we'll wrap up this deep dive into AI adoption. We hope you found it insightful and helpful as always.
Until next time.
Thanks for listening. And remember, the future of work is not about robots replacing humans. It's about humans and machines working together to create a better future for everyone. So go out there and be a part of that future.